Well, I'm going with the Boston Celtics, and I believe that this series is going 7. And I'm going with the Celtics to the points that JJ was talking about. Their defense, and I'm going to stand on this. Defense win championships, period. And so when I look at their defense and I look at the journey that they had to go through to get through to this point, KD and Kyrie in the first round, right? Shut them down. They went against Giannis Antetokounmpo, and I get it. They didn't completely shut Giannis down, but they did enough to win that series. And then all of a sudden you go against a Miami Heat team who was first in the Eastern Conference, well coached by Eric Spoelstra, and held them to historical numbers in the postseason. 2 of those games under 90 points. Game 7, 96 points, and they shot horrible from the field and the three-point line. So when I look at their defense, I'm like, hell, they have about 6 guys that are versatile, so versatile around the defensive front line and around the perimeter that I've never seen a defense like this offensively. Yeah, we could talk about the greatness of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but I didn't witness too many others on the Boston Celtics rise to the occasion and have big nights for us. Grant Williams. I watched Al Horford in Milwaukee outplay Giannis Antetokounmpo and have a monster fourth quarter. I didn't watch Derek White come in off the bench and do his thing and have big nights and help them win games. So when I look at the overall landscape and I look at who has the most two-way players in this series, I give the edge to the Boston Celtics, and that's the reason I got them winning in 7. Now I'm going to sit back and just enjoy the show. Y'all go ahead and go at it.
Welcome to my world, Big Perk.
I'm going to sit back and enjoy this one. Yeah, I'm going to sit back and enjoy this one.
I just wanted to make a point to Stephen A. when he's talking about having a defender that can guard a guy like Luka and being able to take other people away and, Luka going for his, that's disrupting the offense. Like, very specifically about that series, that series came down to 2 things. Number 1, the Mavs didn't have the versatility defensively to stop the Warriors. And number 2, they couldn't make an open shot. The Luka Mavs offense, it is Luka controlling pace, manipulating, controlling every matchup, and then he's going to make a pass, and they're either going to make an open shot or they're going to miss an open shot. Like, that's literally what the series came down to. The one game they won, they made open shots. The rest of the games, they couldn't make an open shot. And it was such a regression from how they shot in those first 2 rounds. To me, that series was not about Andrew Wiggins slowing down Luka. It's not true.
I didn't say it was about that. I said Andrew Wiggins ultimately being a participant, because if you will recall, J.J. Redick, he made the All-Star game, and then for the most part of the second half of the season, virtually disappeared. There were times when we were looking at Andrew Wiggins and saying, where the hell are you? I'm talking about the second part of the season, once he made the All-Star break. Now, obviously, Klay came back. You got to ingratiate himself back into the proceedings. We get all of that. But in the same breath, we were looking for more from Andrew Wiggins. During this playoffs, he averaged 18.6 points a game in this series. Now, Luka shot 41% from the field during the series and what have you. Now, we understand it wasn't just Andrew Wiggins. I'm saying that Andrew Wiggins showing up, being long, being athletic. You look at the Boston Celtics with what Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum brings to the table. Andrew Wiggins is going to have to play big in this series. Jonathan Kuminga, I think, is somebody that's going to have to come off the bench and give you a contribution. Kevon Looney, he's not the most athletic dude in the world, but he had some stellar games during the series. He's going to have to play stellar in these NBA Finals as well, because the combination of Robert Williams and Al Horford are obviously going to play a pivotal role, particularly with what they're able to do on the interior defensively. So I'm looking at all of those different things, and I'm saying it ain't just about Klay. It ain't just about Poole. It ain't just about Steph. They've got some other dudes that they're going to need to step up to beat a formidable Boston Celtics squad. And if Andrew Wiggins looks the way he looked in the Dallas series, for the most part, I think that's the kind of stuff that will ultimately lead to the Warriors winning this series.
I totally agree, and I think it's a fair point. I don't think in a normal basketball year Andrew Wiggins is an all-star. I do think Andrew Wiggins has found a fit where he can star in his role.
I agree.
And he's doing it at a fantastic level. He's a really, really good basketball player for the Golden State Warriors.
Question.
Yes.
But did he look that way after the All-Star break?
No. To your point, that's what I'm saying. Right now, in the playoffs, he's starring in his role. We should acknowledge, though, to your point about having other guys. Perk, this kind of ties in with what you were saying about not having any weak links defensively. Andrew Wiggins was guarded by Luka for most of that series. Let's just acknowledge that. And he is not the greatest defender in the world. And so when you talk about him as sort of that fourth option in this series, he's always going to be being guarded by a Grant Williams, by a Derek White. Like that's what probably their two worst defenders outside of Peyton Pritchard, and both those guys are really solid defensively.
No, I'm with you. And to Andrew Wiggins' defense, though, I said this during the regular season, that the Warriors were going to have a rough patch of trying to figure things out once Klay Thompson got back into the lineup, because now all of a sudden some of those shots or shot attempts that you were getting, you wasn't going to get those no more. Now all of a sudden they had to figure out who was going to come in off the bench, what the rotations was going to be like. Was it going to be Jordan Poole night? And I think Andrew Wiggins, although he didn't shoot the ball well, I thought he did a great job of just accepting his role after the All-Star break and kind of sacrificing, because Jordan Poole had monster nights, so everybody can't go out there and flourish and have great nights on this Warrior team because of their depth. And with Klay Thompson returning, it kind of moved Andrew Wiggins back to that third or fourth option. Before Klay Thompson, he was valued as really kind of the second, maybe third option majority of the season.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.